And we're live. Hey, everybody, it's the Manzoni in the Morning Show. All right. Yeah. How's everybody doing? It's Friday. Friday feeling. All right. We're going to read some new poetry. I want to get all the politics out of my system before I go on tonight at the Terrain Show in Spokane, Washington. Part of the 7:30 block of poets, which means I'll probably be going on around 7:50, 8 o'clock. It's going to be good. I just went to the Mike Pence protest the other day, and I held up the Trump baby blimp, and it was a lot of fun. Very partisan. Either you're on this side or you're on that side. So I'm going to very clearly demonstrate which side I am on because I've got a poetry poem or a protest poetry. A protest poem, okay? It's called Pence Protest. All right. Let's get this show on the road. Boom. Today is the day of the protest. Who are we protesting today, you may ask? And to that, I say, Republicans. Vice President Pence is coming to town to support the rival of Lisa Brown, Kathy McMorris Rogers, Trump's personal puppet mouthpiece in Eastern Washington. And wouldn't you know it, they need all the help they can get come midterms in November. In 1 month it will be decided. No more big battlefields until 2020. Not the show, but the year. Who will fall and who shall rise? Out here, the deck is stacked against us. Leftists, bleeding hearts. It is good that our hearts can still bleed. For yours, Mr. VP, has hardened and mummified into cold diamonds, blood diamonds. Do you hear all of us? Do you see all of us mobilized online? We are taking to the streets. We are peacefully demonstrating our discontent and moralistic outrage. Here be another stage, another battle to be fought with words and soon to be ballots. We might lose, but we'll still do what is legally possible to stop you. Intolerance, where is your precious border wall? Once built, I hope it falls and crumbles into nothingness. So, what is this? How have we become so divided? Politics trump your principles. You scramble through the Bible with your Confederate white nationalist highlighter, twisting ancient words of ancient prophets who, if alive today, would be on heavy doses of antipsychotic pharmaceuticals. You would strip their health care as well. Sorry, Moses. Sorry, Elijah, and all the others. You have succumbed to ethical constipation. You had better increase your fiber consumption. Perhaps learn a few lessons from your man, the big JC, for he would not follow you, it's true. But that isn't something you could use to drag down your political opposition. Did you miss them? The words, love your neighbor as yourself. The VP is not welcome, for you have stood behind the casino criminal and have helped him turn this country into a reality TV program in progress. What progress is this? Walking backwards while wearing a blindfold to encourage all the worst characteristics of the old and angered ignorant. It plays right into the hands of the rich and powerful, while Kanye rambles on still and Ted Nugent oils his guns. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide in this twisted carnival sideshow. Don't you know that this is insane? Explain your motives without benefit of Fox News fear-mongering. That the Democrats are trying to turn our country communist, while your number one man plays patty cake with Putin. You are charging hundreds of dollars for tickets. It is clear who you are giving towards: the lords of industry, lords of insanity. All they are about are tax cuts, and you'll keep cutting them, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and borrowing to hide the fact, and are blaming everyone else except themselves. The political scene is a living hell. The bells toll for thee 12 times. Fine wines and classic cars. You need not travel too far to witness this economic disparity. An honest Republican candidate is a rarity. Find the clarity to make the right choice. Listen to the voice that tells you how wrong this all is. What about all the locked up kids? Can you hear their cries as they are denied their freedoms? We don't need them, these Republicans, these cheap cons. Olympus Mons. Our president thinks he's a god. Bigger than Zeus, it's the truth. Trump is a fly in our soup. You may think it's no use any longer to try to stand up while our cups keep filling with blood and excreta. It's no wonder why the tea was so chunky. A monkey could do a better job than this. Chicken or fish, you are asked, as the plane spirals down tailspin into a mountain, while our president pisses into your courtyard fountain. What? You say you don't own one of them? Then you're going to be upset when the deed is done and you are abandoned in the desert, blistering sun with nothing but your semi-automatic gun to protect your terrified family from mad roving gangs of Hillarys. Can't you see that this is not the right direction? Kavanaugh's erection, frat boy exposed and thrusted into an unwilling woman's cheek. And you dare to label us weak? Nothing defines you except your hate, your greed, your willingness to look the other way so you can have your miserable day and drag everybody down along with you. I pray that you lose. Mike Pence, our best defense is the truth, though I know it means so little to you, but not to all. We have thereupon gathered under the shadow of the Trump baby Macy's Thanksgiving-style balloon to voice our collective indignation to the entire nation. The buck stops here. The Trump stops here. We fear for our children. We fear for our future generations. Even if you, Kathy, even if you, VP, can only exist within the temporal election cycle guidelines. Everything is fine as long as you win. Let the healing begin. Though I would be lying if I said this gaping open wound didn't need stitches. Red, white, and blue blood exits the laceration. Might we aid the coagulation? Or are we the only ones to take notice, to care where this path shall lead us? Out here in the streets, I await the protest. News crews have gathered and the helium tanks are laid on the grass. Blue cylinders and a sweater-bound Labrador seated between them. A sign so written says, "Impeach the leech. There in it be the truth, that we as a nation are struggling to fully realize. Your Republican designs are at fault. Ah, the Trump baby has arrived. It is carried on the backs of citizens, patriots filled with love and concern for the fate of this country. Cameras pointed, they are tying him down amidst fall wind gusts. A blustery day. May we and the balloon not get too carried away in the fervor. I know it can be too easy with all of this tension. There needs to be some release, or we will thence be drawn into Pence's raging tide. Can there be only two sides? Or may we one day rise from the stranglehold of partisanship? Either way, we mustn't quit. We mustn't give in to utter exhaustion. Of the cost, will the price be too much? Will our lives be touched or thus grabbed by a vicious, tiny hand who doesn't acknowledge that no means no? Squeaky pump pumping up Trump and the accompanying nuclear missile. They asked me to hold the tethers, which I did. It was an honor for me. There is a counter-protest developing across the street. They are flying their banner, "Make America Great Again." People are driving by, honking their support, though a few are flying middle fingers. A Trump-masked man, straight out of the purge, runs in on me, screaming, as I hold up the baby's diaper, trying to provoke me to retaliation while he has me on Facebook Live. I wave and smile and exclaim to him that America is great. It never needed to be made great again. Thank you very much. Mike Pence protest. That was a great day. A lot of stuff going on. I'd do it again in a second. Here's a reading from the Spokane Story. The deal goes down outside the Swamp Tavern, West 5th Avenue, Friday, November 14th, 2014, 7:45 p.m. Pete and Eddie stood over by the dumpsters, chain-smoking cigarettes behind the illustrious Swamp Tavern, which was a place designated by a large, rectangular lighted sign at the top of a very tall pole that simply said, "Tavern," in black on a yellow background. Not quite the Davenport Grand, but it would do for what needed to be done. Fun fact, the Davenport Grand was under construction at the time of this novelization. They were refused service when they had previously entered. The bartender insisted he could not serve Pete because he was visibly intoxicated. At least Eddie carried his evening buzz with a bit more grace than, say, someone who only moments before had suffered a major concussion. At this point, the rain had slowed to a crawl, and the night sky was clearing up once more. A drunk staggered out of the bar and fell on the sidewalk cursing. The bartender swung open the door and yelled, "Come back when you've dried out some, you wet-brained motherfucker." The drunk got up slowly and went over to an old Vincent Black Shadow motorcycle parked by the sidewalk under the bright halogen kiss of floodlights. Pete and Eddie quietly laughed at the lush while he tried to steal it, failed miserably, and subsequently stumbled off, cussing and kicking at stationary objects towards sunset. "How'd we beat your guy here?" asked Pete as he cracked open one of his remaining beers. "You know how these dickweeds roll," replied Eddie, his lips trailing thin plumes of previously unexhaled smoke. "Nash could be here any minute, or he could be here in 3 hours. Then again, he's trying to head out to Seattle. Logic would dictate that he would want to take care of his runs as soon as possible. Pete repeated his friend's words with a heavy southern drawl. Logic would dictate. Go fuck yourself, white boy. Not before you do, Eddie. Bah! Huffed Eddie before flicking his cigarette butt onto the asphalt, whereupon it was extinguished by the rain with a most fluid rapidity. There was a moment of relative silence between them. A distant clanging bell sounded heralding another inbound train. The swamp was only a few dozen yards from the tracks. The ground already had begun to vibrate slightly. So, said Pete, maybe this is the wrong question, but are you doing anything for Thanksgiving? Yeah, Pete, you're right. That was the wrong question. Eddie was 3/4 native, 1/4 Irish, which was quite a combo if I do say so myself. Want to get drunk? Oh, I'm gonna get drunk. I'm gonna get so drunk, I sleep right through that motherfucker. Same's what I do for Columbus Day. Fuck that guinea with his map. And while we're at it, fuck the Pilgrims. Fuck New England. Fuck Old England. Fuck the Mayflower. Fuck the Dutch. Fuck the Spanish. Fuck fucking Plymouth fucking Rock. Pale face, piece of shit. White motherfuckers, I'll kill them all. Every last one of you. All right, Eddie. God, I knew I shouldn't have said anything. It's kind of a touchy subject there, bro, but yes. Yes, what? Yes, you can get drunk with me if that's what you're getting at. Sounds good. I'll pick up some decent whiskey, some top shelf weed. It'll be all right. No worries. A white Toyota RAV4 truck, sans hood. Engine exposed to the elements, puttered very slowly down 5th towards the tavern. Pete saw it first and thought it was another one of his myriad hallucinations. Is that Nash? Asked Pete. Yeah, Eddie said. What the fuck is he doing? He's driving slow as shit is what he's doing. Give me your cash. Come on, quick. Yes, cash for Nash. Pete handed Eddie some folded up 20s and a 10. Eddie palmed the wad and hustled over to the dude, who instead of just turning into the lot had gone straight over the curb. Thunk, thunk. There was a tremendous abrupt noise, the scraping of rim against concrete. The sharp knives of auditory death caused Pete to break out in a fresh bout of anxious perspiration and palpitations, which really sucked for him because it was in the 30s and the temperature was falling. As nothing like sweating when it's cold out, Pete thought as he brushed more sweat off his forehead with the back of his sleeve. As Pete's mind struggled to maintain some semblance of equilibrium, Pete observed the scene and his thoughts went askew as everything started to seem really jazzy to him. Like it was one of them old black and white films. Back when the soundtrack would cut to a jazzy theme to let the audience know when something underhandedly criminal was afoot. Pete thought he could hear a quartet of horns with the alto saxophone and trumpet playing solo off one another, not smooth, but harsh and in allegro, one of the most vivacious of tempos. Freeform jazz, America's first rap music. Then came the piano with huge 12-key minor 7 chords. The music, once conceptualized in Pete's brain, materialized into something tangible. something Pete knew to be imagination of auditorial eccentricities, but still could not ignore. He had his own personal soundtrack. Who's that on the piano, thought Pete. The guy with the weird name. Felonious Drunk? Yeah, that's it. He's in the smoke-filled lounge with the other guys, and I'm the only white dude at the bar, sipping a Tom Collins, circa 1963. Pete was lost in his musical thoughts when the handoff occurred. It looked a bit obvious, but not entirely out of place on this side of town. Who knows how many drug deals happened in this parking lot over the course of a weekend? 20? 50? 100? It is one of those little things one can never be absolutely sure of. Yes, one of those little things. Here's another tidbit that Pete reflected on whilst horns blasted in his ears and dark figures capered around in the shadows conspiring against him. You know what? I don't think I've ever seen a cop drive through here before, he thought. But what happened next was one of them self-fulfilling prophecies. And normally, Pete's spidey sense would have gone crazy. But he had been awake for some time, and not only was he markedly less alert, but he was also less paranoid as well. There sometimes comes a point in the total annihilation stage that one comes to accept the demons and ne'er-do-wells creeping around him or her as an inevitability, whereas in the window peeker stage, one expends an inordinate amount of energy evading their tricks and their traps, usually by recognizing coincidences and running around like a mental patient trying to defuse the situation, or simply hiding in a choice dark corner or closet. Pete should have brought his A game. Instead, he was over at the concession stand buying nachos and beer that were way too overpriced. Eddie had just put the dope in his pocket when the undercover car, a black on black streamlined police interceptor, came from the opposite direction of the Toyota, flashing red and blue from the dashboard. Nash, a long-haired greaseball, whom was wearing sunglasses at night, panicked and drove right into the front bumper of the cop car with a crash that resounded over the train as it neared and roared with a particular salience of its own, overcoming even the brassy backdrop squeal of Pete's horns. This was one of those times Pete could have saved himself a lot of stress simply by keeping his cool. If he acted naturally, he would not have had anything to fear. He was not in possession of a controlled substance, nor was he witness partaking in any illegal activity. The hypodermic syringes he had in his backpack were legal in this state. If he did not react so suddenly as to what was going on, i.e. breaking out into a full-fledged gallop, then he wouldn't have had to do shit except walk away calmly and regroup with Eddie at a later point in time. If Eddie successfully managed to evade capture and processing, that is. Two white officers exited the vehicle screaming with their Glocks drawn. One ran over to the front of the Toyota and tried the driver's side door. When it failed to open, he forcibly pulled Nash, who by now was also screaming, right out of the window, while the other sprinted after Eddie. "Shit!" yelled Eddie, who stood there shocked with the suddenness of it all. "Stop! Police!" yelled the rapidly oncoming officer of the law, only a patrolman, still though. After Eddie quickly recovered from the initial calamity, he smiled. Pete couldn't see it though because he was already running in the opposite direction towards the steep, muddy hillside bisected by railroad tracks and fortified with large blocks of concrete. There was a distinct possibility that they could beat the train if they were fleet enough of foot. It wasn't like they were trapped, though. There was a longer way around that went beneath the tracks. That was Pete's plan B, though. All Pete heard was the police officer's screams as Eddie would draw a full canister of bear mace and emptied the entire contents of it into the poor bastard's eyes at 25 meters. Needless to say, the two young criminals, took off in fantastic flight as would leaves carried adrift in a swift gust of late autumn wind. Very interesting. That's the end of that chapter. Sad to say that the Swamp Tavern is no longer open for business. Yeah. Well, let's get on to our next thing, shall we? How about that? Very nice. Well, let's do a poem. So I hope everyone's having a good day. I know I am. It's going to be even better when I get up on the stage. You know what I mean. All right, let's do this. Darkness surrounds me. It's been a long time since I've been up at this hour writing poetry. Blame it on the routine. I peak around 10:30 a.m. and never seem to retrieve it until I am recharged once again. It is not as easy to write at night. There be no benefit of coffee. It's just not the same anytime outside the awakening hours. But on the plus side, I am verily untainted by the morning news cycle, that which often drives me to anger and outrage. I expel it onto the page, sometimes the stage. Any place they will allow me. Darkness surrounds me as I sit out on the porch to write, of course. The brisk air slows me, though not the pen. When will we meet again? Somewhere? Not here. Nothing is clear except the passage of time. I'm asking why. Why didn't I die when I tried to and abused my body so? It led me to growth, even if it did not seem like it inside those hospital, those rehab walls. Thank you. That was a new one. I'm trying to write outside my comfort zone. So I have my routine where I get up real early in the morning and I write poetry and stuff. And then, so I tried, sometimes I'll do it at night, but it's cool. It's cool. It's strange though, because you get locked into doing something a certain way and then you try doing it in another way, another place. And then it's like a completely different experience, you know? It's called I Keep On Going. I keep on going. The poem, it never relents. It keeps on going even when the pen has since been capped, even when the pen is lost. The cost, minute flecks of sanity, scrape away into a globular resin. I keep on going. Production continues on the YouTube show, Manzoni in the Morning. Don't you know that one cannot please everybody? Everybody, all possessed of different opinions and inclinations. You'll drive yourself crazy trying to make them all happy. Possibly drive straight into an early grave, cardiovascular event. My heartbeat skips at every cell phone notification, opportunity, or peril, or nothing at all. How far shall we fall before we finally rise? Very good. Now we're going to go for some American Carnage. There's a novel about the year 2092, and it's the future, and it's turned into a totalitarian madhouse. Up is up, down is down, everything is happening all around. And the president is a maniac, and everyone is just, they don't know what to do because shit has hit the fan. Nuclear war has turned the earth into a fucking shit pile. And they're just trying to deal with all the facts of reality, the radiation in the air, World War III going on between America and Russia and China, but then suddenly America's with Russia and then they're with this person, they're against the European Union, all based on reality, you know. I use this to try to make sense of the reality that we're all dealing with here because it is crushing. It just crushes my soul every day. I see all this shit on the news with all these assholes like fucking Brett Kavanaugh and these motherfuckers just fucking around and just saying, everyone should be scared because they're going to come for you. All of these white males, you better watch out for what you put in your high school yearbook. You want to know what I put in my yearbook? Not in the high school one because I wasn't in it, but in my middle school yearbook, get this. Here's a secret. I had a quote, I believe, from Dragon Ball Z. That's right, anime. Wow. This guy's a bad motherfucker. You better watch out for me. Here's some American Carnage. It's a continuation from the chapter I read the other day with Rex, the billionaire man-child who has escaped from his father's space station to go down to Earth to party at Ibiza. Chapter 16, Rex can't figure out this whole piloting a spaceship thing. Space Station Epsilon, hangar. Getting the drop ship started was the easy part. Piloting it was an entirely different story. Sad to say. It seemed a lot easier than it turned out to actually be. Down was up was down. That was crazy, these inverted controls. They seemed absolutely insane to Rex. It wasn't like on the video games, the VR setups, where the controls could easily be allocated and customized to the user's exact specifications, no matter how cumbersome or ridiculous. Immediately upon departure, events began to sour, especially when Rex realized that the ship itself hadn't been fully released from its tether. As he pulled out from the hangar, the heavy chain got caught in the main bay door and subsequently caused several $1 million worth of damage. Whoops! Exclaimed he. Maybe this wasn't such a primo idea after all. At this point, the neighbors and associated individuals that had witnessed the act had already reported the event to the authorities. It was then 3 minutes later that the calls began to come rolling in. First, of course, was Father Glenn Cassowary, then others. Rex made it a point to not answer. He did not feel that it would prove fortuitous to his ends, and he was right in that he was screwed either way. 17. Rex's unexpected crash landing. The Gulf of Aden, Yemen. Rex thought he was headed to Ibiza. And he was at first. The problem arose when he made a decision to disable the GPS on his tablet as well as on the dropped ship. This interfered with the autopilot, so much so that it completely knocked him off of course. So the question arises, where did he land? He landed in one of the worst places on the planet a rich white American could land. The Gulf of Aden, off the coast of Somalia and Yemen. The drop ship plummeted into the sea, a brilliant orange and white fireball cascading down from the sky. When Rex regained consciousness, he initially thought he was being picked up by a party boat, except that party boats do not fly the black flag of the United Islamist Caliphate. Additionally, as prescribed by their particular interpretation of Sharia law and Wahhabism, a party boat would be strictly verboten under any circumstances. Well, unless it was part of a massively elaborate scheme to blend in while infiltrating Western interests. A suicide party boat, if you will. But you won't. So far, it hasn't come up yet, as far as I know. Rex came to feeling uneasy from the atmospheric re-entry. He had never experienced G's. There was anti-gravity on the station, but it wasn't 100% the same as Earth's. Rex brushed a trickle of blood from his left upper eyebrow. The airbag deployed with such force that it had apparently cut him and gave him a noticeably swelling shiner that would be quite unbecoming had he appeared at the festival with his friends, who were essentially a cavalcade of billionaire spawn. No, he didn't have to worry about that anymore. If he were more up to date on current events, he would not have so excitedly popped open the hatch of the dropship to wave down the distant vessel with both arms, screaming, "Hey, I'm here, somebody help me!" The first sign that things weren't going as originally planned was when Rex spotted the glare of a telescopic lens from the crow's nest of a rusted barge. Rex witnessed the flash from the nest. The bullet came before the crackle of rifle fire. It whizzed by Rex's left cheek and landed in the chrome hull of the dropship with a rending thunk. "Shit!" exclaimed Rex as he hurriedly descended down back into the depths of the ship. "Something tells me I'm not in Ibiza." Immediately, Rex turned on the GPS and attempted to call his father for help. He could not get a signal. So he did what he could. He locked the hatch, turned off all the lights, and hid in a closet, shivering and crying while the barge slowly floated up. A small boat with a crew of 4 skinny teenage Afrikaners was lowered down from the barge with a winch. They quickly went up to the dropship, and after their attempts to enter and pry the door open proved futile, they attached a barnacle-encrusted stainless steel tow cable to the bow of the dropship and subsequently departed, laughing to one another, jesting in their native tongues. Rex felt a sense of orientation shift as the barge began to pull the derelict dropship against the current. It was a Somali ship, controlled by what was formerly known as Boko Haram. Now they were all simply regional facets of the United Islamist Caliphate. They brought Rex north, towards the tumultuous shores of Yemen, which has always been a very friendly place for Americans to visit. Not really. Never before had Rex experienced such raw terror and uncertainty. Sure, his father definitely caused his share of fear, but he was predictable in that you knew when he was going to go off and how long it took before he'd run out of energy when the beating started. Rex knew not what lay before him on the winding roads of fate. Thank you. That's some American Carnage. Hope you enjoyed this live feed. I'm going to be getting ready for the big show at Terrain tonight. Yes, hope to see you there. I'm going to be reading poetry, and it's going to be great. Looking forward to seeing you. Visit thespokanestory.com and maybe buy some merchandise such as a backpack or a hat. There's a contact order form on the website. You can contact me and I'll take care of you, you know. This is Alexander A. Manzoni with Manzoni in the Morning. Do, 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 do.